Hello, I'm Simon. Welcome back to my workshop. Now this is part 2 of building a services boom for your workshop. In part 1 I built this design which wasn't suitable and was a bit of a fail. So in part 2 I'm going to try and address that with a new design to see if I can get this boom working properly. Let's get tinkering. So in part 2 I'm literally turning this design on its side. So I will have a boom that can rotate at this end on the ceiling. I'm going to extend this beam out the back and put a counterweight on the back, and then here I'm just going to keep this pretty much as it is now. So this will be able to move around the ceiling, giving me a radius of basically the 0 where it's rotating. If I fold this all the way back, up to about 6 feet fully extended, and then I'll have my services dangling off this end. Now I might have to do some more work to stabilise it and so on. This is quite wobbly, but at the moment I think most of the wobble's coming from the end where I'm just got it clamped to the workmate, so I think I can solve those problems, especially with a counterweight at the back, but I won't know until I've actually built it. So I'm going to crack on and rebuild this in my Mark II design. And I have just shown you this rotating in this orientation, but I think this will be a lot stronger with the wood in this orientation. What that does do is make the joint here a bit more complicated, but I think it's going to be worth that extra complication in order to get a more sturdy boom. It's better to use the wood in the direction where it's strongest, where the strength's needed, than to use it in the direction where it's more convenient but not as strong. So I think this is going to wobble more than if it's up in this orientation. With the orientation of the wood changed, I need to think about how I'm going to hinge it, and I've decided to go with one of these gate hinges. Now, in order to fix this securely, I really want to go through both pieces of wood, so I need to put a piece of wood in between, like so. But because I'm not completely sure how I want my services to run along the beam, I'm going to make it a little bit thinner so that I've got this gully here that I can put cables down. The boom will need some spacers, and these offcuts are ideal, but first they need to be dimensioned to the correct size. I glue the spacers onto the front half of the boom arm. Note that the front space has a radius on it so that any cables that dangle from the boom don't chaff on a sharp corner. I add some weights and leave the glue to set. I do the same with the rear half of the boom. I lay out the parts ready for gluing and then apply the glue using an applicator I got from Axminster. So the first half is all glued up. I'll give it an hour or so and then I'll glue the other piece to it. With the boom arm drying, I can start on how it will be fixed to the ceiling. I need to fix it securely. That means making sure I screw it to the rafters, and the arm needs to clear the lights, so I opt for building a simple box design. I'm going to use this old bed frame, but before I can do that I need to cut off the end that's got some holes in, and then cut it to size. The length here is arbitrary, but I use the flag stop to make sure they're both exactly the same length. I'm making a basic box which will go on the ceiling to give me some clearance for the boom so that it doesn't hit the strip lights. I then use the flag stop once again to cut these to the same length. And because this board's a little too wide, I rip it to size. And this offcut is just the right size to make the end of the box. This box would be rather crude, so it's going to need some additional bracing, and I ripped some of the leftover bed frame to do this. I glue and screw the brace in place. Say that fast. I use a clamp to give me an extra pair of hands. Now the glue on the boom is dry, I can screw the hinge on, which will allow the front part to fold backwards. I drill a hole in the centre of the box. This will be the pivot point for the boom arm. I've had a change of plan. My original plan was to fix this box to the wall with 4 screws at the ends of the pieces of 3x2. But I've discovered that actually the width of the box now is such that I can actually put the screws all the way along the piece of 4x2, and that'll mean that it'll be fixed to the ceiling with 8 screws rather than just 4, and I think this is a better approach. And because I no longer need them, I cut the ends off. The coach bolt is a friction fit, but I've also added some epoxy just to be sure.
to keep it balanced, I need to fit some counterweights to one end. I found the pivot point and then marked it a little bit further back so that the back would be a little bit heavier than the front. This is because I haven't got any surfaces on it yet. I've still got the ability to add additional weight to the back, or at some later date move where the pivot point is. For now, I'm just going to have it so it's roughly balanced. I could then attach the boom to the bolt on the ceiling. So that's the boom arm complete, but this is only really stage one. Now I need to add services to it, such as a light, vacuum hose and mains electricity, but they'll come up in future videos. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, then please subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.